Welcome everybody to the final episode of the Denver Broncos franchise here on Madden 25. Today we've got our long-term simulation as we will go into the future as long as we need to see how everybody on the team's careers play out up until their retirement. We're ending two series today. We wrapped up Kansas. Well, technically we wrapped up Kansas earlier, and I'll probably reference that championship game at some point during the episode. So if you haven't watched it, I'd probably start with that and then come back here. I'm excited to see how everything plays out, though, how Bo Nix's career continues as he starts his 6-year contract extension. We've got a lot of decisions to make early. Guys like Ashton Jeanty and Travion Henderson, both not under contract for next season. We're not going to be able to run it back like we did a year ago. We're going to have some guys go because we recognize the bigger picture of all the players we have to pay and all the players who we're going to want to continue to keep. Patrick Surtain, now 29 years old, starting to regress a little bit. It's not hitting him too hard, but that's going to be a major storyline throughout the episode, seeing all these guys rise and eventually fall. Jeffrey Bossa, at 26 years old, is at the peak of his powers, a 99 with morale. But for some of the older players, and eventually these draft picks, they're going to start to regress at some point. Even Marvin Grant, who we drafted in the first draft of the series, he actually went down quite a bit. At 28 years old and 84 overall, not accounting for the morale boost. He is also a free agent at the end of the year. This is definitely the best team we've built of the series. Last year felt more like the exciting run and the team that wasn't really supposed to get there. This year's team was, though, 13-4. We beat the Bears in the Super Bowl with a solid game from Bo Nix. Ashton Jeanty with a great performance on the ground. He runs for over 80 yards and a couple of scores, winning the Super Bowl MVP. Although Trey Henderson, his backfield mate, was not too much worse. I thought, as good as Ashton Jeanty played, and I don't have a problem with him winning the Super Bowl MVP, I would have given it to Pat Surtain. He had the interception late in the first half. He took DJ Moore out of the game in terms of his coverage ability, and I think he was the best player on the field. This has been quite the group we have built up to while winning multiple championships. And throughout this series, we figured out that Season 5 is going to be the last year of this current window. And we took advantage of our window, winning multiple titles. Now we're going to have to retool and potentially at some point rebuild. We're going to see if we have any players make it into the Hall of Fame. No one is slated to make it in yet from our team, but got to imagine that'll potentially change. Trayshawn Holden already above 10,000. He leads the drafted players. Pat Surtain has the clear edge amongst players on the roster currently. Maybe Bo Nix gets in, like an Eli Manning-esque career. Although if Bo Nix wins another ring, that would put him at 3. That would put him in really select company. And given that he's only 29 years old, he's certainly got time. We have $53 million to spend, and we have a lot more than $53 million worth of players here. So again, we're going to have to let some guys go, and we're going to have to make decisions based on all the big contracts that we've handed out over the last few years, with Bo Nix and Jeffrey Boss's deals now officially on the books. And that's not to mention all the other deals that we've added, and some of these older players. Aleem McNeil, remember, we wanted to give him a 2-year deal. It was either 3 years or bust. We gave him the 3, and it worked out because we won a Super Bowl the first 2 years. But that's $33 million less of financial flexibility. We don't have many super old guys on the roster. Will Lutz is the only player older than 30. But with these ruthless XP sliders that I developed at the beginning of the Madden cycle, some of these guys are going to go down really, really, really fast. These sliders were designed for progression to be quicker. Players peak earlier in their careers, and they go down earlier in their careers, much like it is in the current NFL. Our team has won 2 Super Bowls in a row. We'll see if we can add to that total. We'll see if we can add 3 or 4 in a row, really make this into a dynasty. Navigating through these sliders, though, is going to make it especially tricky and especially more realistic. Here in 2025, let's go back in time, say, 10 years. Who won the Super Bowl that year? Well, ironically, it was the Denver Broncos. How many guys on that Broncos team are still contributing in the NFL today? Von Miller, Brandon McManus might have been on that team. The kicker, that's probably it off the top of my head. So probably in 10 years, there will not be many guys left contributing in the league on our or other teams. Now, there will be a handful because you have your fair share of unicorns out there, but at certain positions, especially like running back, it's going to be rough. Jonathan Taylor, he's starting to regress a little bit at 30, and he's the oldest running back currently on a roster. Ashton Genty's a 97. He is at basically his peak, but in 3 or 4 years, he's going to fall off hard. Wide receiver as well. 33 is currently the oldest, and these guys are all quite slow, other than DK Metcalf. At some point, we're going to see guys like Justin Jefferson really start to regress, and even he at 30 is starting to lose some steam, now as a 97 overall. Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, they haven't gotten a hit yet, but it's going to happen at some point, and it's going to happen fast. So let's start with our first offseason here in 2028. We've got the 2029 draft. We'll see guys like Hoss Haney enter the league. In terms of notable moves, Dak Prescott has gotten the franchise tag. He'll be back in Cleveland. And then retirements. TJ Watt is done. Tyreek Hill, Marlon Humphrey, Wyatt Teller, and a handful of other guys, but no one overly notable for the story of the series. And as we make it through the 2030s, that'll certainly change. We'll accept Colin Wright's fifth-year option, and now we've got some decisions to make. At running back, I don't think it makes sense to pay both of these guys. I think we're going to have to pick between Trey Henderson and Ashton Genty. And I think based on age, rating, and skill set, Ashton Genty will age better through the long-term sim. I offered him 4 years, $48 million. He says yes. So he'll be sticking around. Meanwhile, Travion Henderson, we will let go of. It was a really good trade acquisition. He's been awesome the last year and a half, but we're going to move on from him. Baron Browning, I'm going to let go as well. He wants almost $30 million. He hasn't really regressed yet, despite being 30. He's been a good player for us over the years, but with his debilitating health, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to pay him big money. We're going to miss him, though. He's been around for a while. We've got a lot of guys in the secondary. We will start things off at safety. Marvin Grant is older and does not have a dev trait over Jaden Hicks, but he's been our guy for a while since he was in college. We're going to re-sign him. And then I'm going to bring back Benjamin Morrison as well. 5 years, $30 million. That feels like a bargain for him to play in the slot along with Pat Surtain and Colin Wright. We're going to re-sign punter Jake Camarda as well to a 1-year deal. So those will be our contract moves here for this first offseason. We're going to be letting multiple key players go. Trey Henderson, Baron Browning, Jaden Hicks, Rivaldo Fairweather, Gus Hartwig, Rasheed Walker, Will Lutz will be leaving, and I don't plan on bringing him back. We will get a new kicker. So this back-to-back Super Bowl roster that we've developed, we're going to see it shake up already within the first few minutes of today's episode. We're going to have a little bit of money to spend, around $30 million, as Trey Henderson's the highest-rated player here. Now, we have to be mindful of all the guys we're going to have to pay over the next year or two, so there are not many moves we're going to look to make, but I am going to want to add a backup running back behind Ashton Genty, and I think Jarquez Hunter would be a good choice. He's got a good mix of size and speed. He's been fairly productive behind Nick Singleton with the Minnesota Vikings, so we're going to offer him a 1-year deal to be the RB2 behind Genty. With losing multiple interior offensive linemen, we're going to offer Joshua Gray to be a stopgap guy. And then we need a new kicker. Why not superstar development Andres Borregales on a 1-year, pretty expensive deal for like $8 million a year? All three players would end up accepting. Across the league, Trey Henderson will replace Jonathan Taylor, who was recently cut with the Colts. Baron Browning, meanwhile, will go to the Dolphins, who spent a lot of money this offseason. Jaden Hicks to the Vikings, Tez Johnson to the Bears. They could use a slot receiver, so that is a pretty good fit. As for the draft, we have 5 picks, including number 32 overall. We're mostly using fictional classes at this point. Our first draft did not go all that well, although we did land multiple hidden development players and a pretty solid quarterback in 21-year-old Alejandro Campanaro. The number 1 pick was Randy O'Dwyer, who goes to the Rams after his 3-interception game in the playoff against Kerry Chosen. Hoss Haney, the first quarterback off the board, he will start his career with the Washington Commanders. So that brings us to 2029, first year at the sim, and I'm actually going to trade away Chris Olave. I know we just got him last year at the deadline, but he is regressing quickly, and I'd rather ride it out with the young guys we have at receiver. Chris Brazzell, Ryan Williams, and Mario Maddox. I want those guys to play more alongside Marvin Mims. So the roster's a little bit worse than last year. We had to make some tough decisions, letting go of multiple starters on both sides of the ball. But for the most part, our general core is still here, and the goal is to try to keep this group together for for as long as possible and try to hopefully go on a few more playoff runs and, who knows, maybe win another championship or two. As for the schedule, we will start on Thursday night with the Chiefs once again. I don't love the early bye week. We play the Chargers twice in a row with the bye week sandwiched in between. So we'll simulate up to the midseason mark. Hopefully the team plays well. And we're doing okay. 4th and 3. Not great, not horrible. I do have a trade. Andrew Thomas is going to go to the Commanders for a third. They're playing really well. Hoss Haney has been awesome as a rookie so far. I thought Tyler Johnson looked good at left tackle last year when Andrew Thomas was hurt, and I'm confident with him being the full-time starter. $76 million to spend and a whole lot more than $76 million worth of players. Mykel Williams is easily priority number 1. We re-sign him for 5 years, $150. I think that's the only move we're going to make right now. We're going to make those other decisions later. We do have a defensive line breakout opportunity for Mateo Uiagalelei. Interestingly, though, it's not a challenge. They're just going to give him the development trade. I'm not complaining as we simulate to the playoffs. 6-11? What? We won 2 games after the midseason mark? What happened? This team fell on its face. Oh my God, 21 interceptions. I pretend I don't see it. What happened to Bo Nix? The most interceptions he had before was 11. He had some bad games. 6 against the Giants in a 41-10 loss. Oh my God. What happened to our glorious quarterback? Mansour Delane, the former Virginia Tech Hokie, had a couple. 4 other players had 1. Solid year for Genty, averaged over 5 yards a carry. Another 1,000-yard season for Marvin Mims. The receivers were kind of banged up overall, though. The offensive line was not good whatsoever. That was probably a reason why we sucked at the end of the year. As for the defense, Mateo Uiagalelei leads the way in sacks. Another strong season for both Bossa and Sanders. Josh Allen wins the NFL MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year. Depoy goes to Will Anderson with the Texans. And then in the NFC, Jeremy Bernard wins it for the Giants. Micah Parsons wins the Depoy. I saw Mateo Uiagalelei at the bottom of the list in 10th for the AFC. He's developing into a very nice player. Let's take a look at this playoff bracket. The Ravens and the Cowboys are your number 1 overall seeds. The Bears missed the playoffs. Here are the Pro Bowl rosters. Devin Neal, RB1. I'm leaving this season with something. Not much else to be excited about. We did not have any offensive Pro Bowlers, although I saw Quinn Miners there. And then on defense, we end with no one. No Pro Bowlers. 1 year removed from winning the Super Bowl. The Steelers and the Cowboys. That is a really interesting matchup. The top-seeded Cowboys and the 6th-seeded Steelers. Pittsburgh definitely the underdog here. Their highest-rated player is only a 93, with Quinn Ewers leading the way at quarterback. And then Dallas. The Cowboys won the Super Bowl the 2 years before we did. They don't have Dak Prescott anymore. It's 28-year-old Haynes King at quarterback, but much of this core with CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Travis Hunter, Kyle Hamilton, those guys are all still here. And a lot of familiar names for us. Mello Dotson won't play due to an injury, but they still have Troy Franklin. They still have Devin Dye. And sure enough, they win it 35-30. 3 touchdowns for Haynes King. Apparently Kevin Jennings got some run as well. Donovan Edwards scored twice. That could be enough for the Super Bowl MVP. And then defensively, Trayvon Diggs and Minkah Fitzpatrick each with interceptions. Trayvon Diggs would end up winning the Super Bowl MVP. I thought it probably should have been Haynes King. I feel like his game at the quarterback position was certainly good enough, but they're not going to give it to him. As for our list of retirements, George Kittle, Budda Baker, Myles Garrett, Marshawn Lattimore, Deebo Samuel, and others here in 2029, but still no one who really contributed to the story of the series. In terms of cap space, we have $60 million available and a lot of guys to pay. We'll give Tree Babalade the 5th-year option, and now we've got some decisions to make. Going into the episode, I wasn't really sure about paying Harold Fannin, but I think I'm going to do it. Chris Brazel, I didn't plan on it, but he's asking for not a lot of money. 3 years, $27 million. That feels fair. Ross Ulugalu Masayuli, unfortunately, would say no. That felt like a very fair deal. So we're going to be losing him along with Javon McIntyre, Francis Maui-Noah, and Aleem McNeil. We would re-sign Jarquez Hunter, though. I like what he did as the backup. I'd like to bring him back for another 2 years. And then Andres Borregales says no, while Jake Camarda will be back for the next 4 years. I don't know why we just didn't give him a long-term deal last year, but better late than never. So that'll bring us into free agency. Josh Allen, hello. He's here. Zane Durant, Zariah Beeson, some good players. It looks like the Chiefs lost quite a bit of talent with Durant and Leo Chanel. Joshua Gray was horrible last year, average Oregon State player. So we're going to go after Micah Morris to replace him. And I want another playmaker on defense. I've looked at Nick Eamon-Warry in the past at trade deadlines. We would end up signing both. Josh Allen to the Browns. Are they just not going to play Sam Onatulu? The Colts made a number of moves. The Panthers get Maui Noah. The Eagles get Ulugalu Masayuli. Aleem McNeil and Zane Durant are both left unsigned. So that'll bring us to the 2030 draft. Jay Pitts, amongst the notable names in this class. He's on the board for us at number 5, but that would be pretty irresponsible. We have 5 more years on the Bo Nix deal. So instead, I'm going to pick wide receiver Delvin Drummond. I wanted to pick a trench player on the offensive or defensive line, but with the 5th overall pick, we've got to focus on value. Yes, receiver's not a major need, but he looks like a really good player, and I think we made a solid choice. 80 overall with hidden development. The dude looks like a baller, only 21 years old. I'm excited about him, but not the only big-time skill position player. Kane Kunashik, the Michigan running back who we just saw in the national championship, is our pick here in the 2nd round. I think he's going to be a good backup and eventually the heir apparent to Ashton Genty. Jay Pitts, meanwhile, will start his career in New England. I'm curious to see how he fares as a 79 overall, but with a lack of physical upside. He doesn't have the strongest arm and he's not the fastest. So that'll bring us to our 2nd season of the day when we're starting to see some more changes. Only 2 offensive linemen left, Tree Babalade and Tyler Johnson. The defense, for the most part, fairly similar, only 1 new starter being Nick Eamon-Warry. The team is only 2-4, though. We have one of the lowest scoring offenses in the league. Bo Nix is playing better. The offensive line is playing better. But we're not scoring the ball. What's going on? $62 million to spend, and yeah, this is where it gets bad. There's like $200 million worth of players in here. Colin Wright and Mateo Uiagalelei, the 2 young guys, we've got to bring them back. Those guys are building blocks for the future. But what about guys like Pat Surtain and Marvin Mims? We only have $20 million left. Surtain is 30, though. Mims is 28. So, again, we want to be smart with some of these older guys. 5-12, one of the worst teams in the AFC. What a collapse. This is largely the same team who won the Super Bowl. Why are they so bad? Bo Nix only threw 5 interceptions. That's less than he had in the game against the Giants last year. Genty played well, but only played 10 games. The injuries continue to be a problem for him. Another 1,000-yard season for Marvin Mims. 21 sacks allowed by Tyler Johnson. Jesus Christ. Mateo had 16 sacks, though, 11 for Michael, 8 for Seth Jennings, and 5 picks for Pat Surtain. Joe Burrow wins the MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year. Mateo Uiagalelei wins the DPOY. Let's go. Jeremy Bernard wins the Offensive Player of the Year, while his teammate Kayvon Thibodeau wins the DPOY in the NFC. The Bengals and the Cardinals are your number 1 overall seeds. Ultimately, our Super Bowl ends up being a pretty interesting matchup featuring the number 7 seed Houston Texans against the Arizona Cardinals. Here is the Pro Bowl roster. Bo Nix still has never made it. Devin Neal is back. Love to see that. Another Pro Bowl nod for the former Jayhawk. Mateo Uiagalelei makes it. Michael Williams makes it. And then in the secondary, we do get Patrick Surtain. Javon McIntyre made it. Playing for the Bengals now. He signed very late in the process and had a career year. Cardinals and Texans, number 1 seed versus number 7, and we would ultimately get a big upset. The Texans and C.J. Stroud win the Super Bowl. Stroud takes home the MVP. Retirements include Jair Alexander, Frank Ragnow, Jordan Mailata, Alex Highsmith, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Ramsey, my glorious knight in shining armor, Jared Goff. So after winning just 11 games over the last 2 years, what can we do with this team? Apparently, we only have $7.8 million. We've magically lost a lot of money. We don't really have enough to sign these guys. We can tag Pat Surtain, which we will do, but we're down to negative 20. How are we going to bring anybody back with negative 20? Well, I might just have a plan to make this work. We have not had to restructure any contracts yet throughout the series. I've been waiting until we've needed to. Well, now we need to, and we're going to restructure pretty much anybody we can, the biggest of which being Bo Nix, which will save us $22 million. He regressed a little bit, -1 short accuracy, but hasn't really been hit too much at 31. And all of a sudden, we have $33 million. Ryan Williams is back on a 5-year deal. Marvin Mims is regressing a little bit. I think he's really going to fall over the next couple of years, but we would re-sign him along with Jonel Aguero. We are going to let go of Nick Benito. He hasn't really been the same over the last couple of years. He's only an 82 overall. He's been a great player for us. Won the Defensive Player of the Year back, I think, season 2. But we're going to let him go. We're going to let Damon Clowney go. I think he'll be better off with a bigger role somewhere else. So that brings us into free agency. We have around $9 million to spend with Will Anderson and Derek Stingley. The Texans won the Super Bowl, and now are letting everyone go. They are out of money. Patrick Mahomes is here. I think Lamar Jackson was as well. So some big-name quarterbacks will be switching hands. We had Will Reichard last year. I'm going to try to bring him back as our kicker, and we would. That would be our only offer. Around the league, Will Anderson to Detroit, Derek Stingley to Seattle, Pat Mahomes is a Dolphin, Peyton Bowen to the Raiders, Damon Clowney will play for the Steelers, Nick Benito did not sign originally out of free agency, neither did Lamar Jackson, although I believe he ended up in Atlanta. That'll bring us into the 2030 draft. We had the 5th overall pick again for a second straight year. The rookie receiver Drummond didn't play a lot last year, but I am still excited about him. With this pick, it's mostly quarterbacks and receivers, which isn't ideal. I thought about trading back, but of the guys I'd be looking at, I think Beau Foot is clearly the best one, and I don't want to risk him falling. I think there's a good chance he's one of the next 2 or 3 picks. So we're just going to take him here at number 5, and unfortunately, didn't really end up being a good pick. 50th in true talent. We would make up for it in the 3rd round, though, with safety Tyree Hawkins, who's 4th. We got him at pick 69. Nice. Hawkins is an 81, while Foot's a 76. That's not too bad. These are very strong draft classes with the draft class settings and sliders. We are going to make a preseason trade. I'm going to send Mario Maddox to the Eagles for a 4th. Maddox is 26. I want to get him a chance to play, and I don't really think that's going to be here. Maddox ended up doing pretty well with the Eagles. I think his first 2 or 3 seasons, he had around 1,000 yards. This is what the team will look like going into the 3rd season of the day, 8th overall. I'm excited about this rookie Hawkins in the secondary, who's going to be a day 1 starter with Marvin Grant. The two of them, the exact same rating, an 81. Hopefully the team ends up playing better, and we're not. 3-4. I don't get what the problem is. We started 3-0. We were playing well, but have lost 4 in a row, including 35-0 against the Lions. 24 sacks in 7 games. That's too many. No one individually has been that bad on the offensive line. It's just been a collective effort of everybody not doing great. We have $2.7 million to spend in terms of re-signings. We had a lot of guys there. Surtain, Mims, Seth Jennings. Yikes. Hey, I mean, we improved. We went 7-10. Definitely disappointing considering we started the year 3-0. Seems like our problems were fixed. Yeah, not so fast. Bo Nix was pretty mediocre. 49 sacks, that is too many. 16 touchdowns for Ashton Jeanty. Another good year for Marvin Mims. He continues to be a bright spot. Ryan Williams was really good as well. And then defensively, Bossa was good. Sanders was good. Sack numbers are down, though, across the board. Don't love that. So we'll see what happens here in the 2031 playoffs. We have missed out 3 years in a row. The team has not been very good here in the sim. The Titans and Giants are the number 1 seeds, as it'll be the Giants and the Texans. Houston loses their 2 highest-rated players, and they make it right back into the big game. Ashton Jeanty makes the Pro Bowl. He has not regressed at all yet. He's a 97, but I think he's like 28 years old almost at this point, so it's only a matter of time. Drew Sanders is there. I saw Damon Clowney was there. He had a 14-sack season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Texans and Giants in the Super Bowl. Houston goes for the repeat, and they do not. The Giants, 27-13 with V.J. Payne, the former Kansas State Wildcat. Ew. Winning the Super Bowl MVP. M.J. Morris is a champ. I'm happy for him. Lost the national championship, his final game in college at Maryland, but he wins a Super Bowl with the New York Giants. We've had some really good players go to the Giants. Jeremy Bernard has developed awesome. James Pierce, 2.5 sacks. He probably should have won it over V.J. Payne. I'm not sure why he didn't. 2031 retirements. Jeffrey Simmons, Brian Burns, A.J. Brown, Trayvon Diggs, Super Bowl MVP. Derwin James, Dak Prescott. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. What a series he had. Not just with the Cowboys, but some good seasons in Cleveland as well. We're 3 years into the future. We're starting to notice regression a little bit. Surtain is taking some hits. Marvin Grant is in the 70s for the first time in his career. Marvin Grant is taking some hits. Nothing for Genty, though, even though he's almost 30. A handful of 99s across the league. At quarterback, Avery Johnson and C.J. Stroud atop the list with guys like Allen, Lamar, Burrow, and Mahomes all falling quite a bit. Mahomes only an 88. They're a little bit ahead of Bo Nix, who's an 87. I'm surprised Genty really has not regressed at all. He's 28. He's been lucky. Devin Neal at 29. He's starting to take a hit. And since he's a year older than Genty, that might be a sign of things to come. Why is Jaleel McLaughlin still in the league? He's a 49. Bijan Robinson's an 84. Jahmyr Gibbs is an 81. Those guys were 90s 2 years ago. Negative $15 million. How are we going to dig out of this? Well, we can still restructure some deals. So that is exactly what we're going to do. Push everything as far back as possible. $22.6 million on Bo Nix. That's a big one. He'll be making a lot at the end of that contract, which is not ideal, but we're kind of focused on the present, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there in like 10 minutes. Seth Jennings wants a lot of money, and I'm going to give it to him. I believe in him for the future, so we're going to give him over 20 a year. Tamu Mampepe, I don't want him retiring anywhere else. And then out of Surtain and Mims, I'm going to prioritize Surtain again. We're going to give him the franchise tag. Marvin Mims, we're going to let go of, unfortunately. Tree Babalade, Tyler Johnson, the 2 tackles will be gone. I feel bad about letting go of Earl Culp because he's good and cheap, but we don't really have a choice. Marvin Grant, unfortunately, we cannot bring back. The 2 Marvins are gone. He has regressed a lot and finally has started development. Right when we let him go is when he gets his dev. Not that it's going to matter. He's like 31. Free agency features Trey Smith, Tyler Smith, and Tyler Booker. That is quite the group at the top. A lot of linemen. If you need trench play, you can get them. Tree Babalade is headed to the Baltimore Ravens, a big addition for them. Josh Allen to the Eagles. That's an interesting one. Marvin Mims, meanwhile, is headed to Seattle. He'll be catching passes from Avery Johnson. At this point, I'm going to let the CPU do the drafting, and I'm going to kind of start to hand the reins over to them a little bit, slowly but surely. Brett Pritchard, not a bad pick in the first round. Brody Goldstein, quarterback in the second. And then Cliff Kennedy in the fourth, an 81 overall safety. So we've got a really good safety duo with him and the kid Hawkins, who we drafted last year. Team looks a lot different here going into the 4th season of the day. Ashton Genty's deal is done at the end of the year. I think this will be his last season in Denver, given where we are financially, and then his likely regression in the next year or two. He's a 97 now, but he is going to go downhill probably pretty fast. 4-3 at the midseason mark, not bad. I see that the Chiefs are horrible, 1-6. Love to see it. Apparently, all it took was letting go of Tree Babalade and Tyler Johnson, and the offensive line's been fixed. Bo Nix has only been sacked 2 times per game, which is a lot better than where he was previously. Genty's been pretty solid as well in his final season with the team. Negative $17 million. We're going to try to, again, probably franchise tag Surtain. There's not that many other guys here. Genty, Drew Sanders, Nicky Manwari, some good players, but not as long of a list as we've seen. We do not have a game after Week 18, but it's not because we missed the playoffs. We are the number 1 seed at 12-5. The team's playing some great football. The offense has been on a tear to end the year, which is really encouraging to see, given that the offense has struggled for most of the video. Bo Nix played quite well. Genty, 15 more touchdowns on 5 yards a carry. Ryan Williams, 1,200 yards in only 15 games. Playing very well with no more Marvin Mims. The offensive line was quite good, and then defensively, we had 3 guys with at least 9 sacks. Jennings had 11.5. Surtain with 6 interceptions. Lamar wins the MVP in Atlanta. Carson Beck in second. Keon Coleman, the Offensive Player of the Year. Depoy is Jordan Birch in New England. As for the NFC, Trayshawn Holden wins it again. 19,000 legacy score. That is a lot. Depoy, meanwhile, Thomas Davis with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's turned into a great player, former second-rounder from Appalachian State. So who will we play in the divisional round? Our first playoff game of the video, it's the Buffalo Bills, a team who we've played a lot in the postseason. They have some familiar faces. Keon Coleman, at 29 years old, still at the top of this game. They have a new quarterback, though, Garrison Mullins, who they drafted in year 1. He's been really good with DJ Lagway as the backup. They still have Ruben Bain, Jay-Sean Barnum, Malachi Starks, Parker Jenkins, Dalton Kincaid is still here, as is Harold Perkins. So a number of familiar faces on the Bills. As we lose 31-17, our first playoff loss since all the way back in Season 3. which is the same year we beat the Bills in the first round. 2.1 yards per carry for Genty in likely his final game as a Bronco. Over 100 yards for Brazel, probably in his last game here as well. Colin Wright had a pick, unfortunately, not enough. So it'll be the Falcons and the Titans in the Super Bowl. Lamar makes it back for the first time since year 1. Here we are, almost a decade later. He'll face off against Alex Orji. I saw Luke Grimm make the Pro Bowl. That's pretty cool with the Cardinals. Tree Babalade made it. Not sure how to feel about that. Pat Surtain is there. Drew Sanders, I think, is there. A couple other guys as well. Ashton Genty, I think, was among them. So does Lamar finally get over the hump against the Titans? Yes, he does. Lamar Jackson, a Super Bowl champion, first ever ring for the Falcons as well. All it took was for Lamar to leave the Ravens. 3 interceptions for Alex Orji. He won a national title in Michigan, but does not win the Super Bowl. Brinkley at over 100 yards for the Titans. Great game for Trayshawn Holden, continuing his Hall of Fame career. Kyle Pitts in year 13, a Super Bowl champ. Samaj Morgan wins the Super Bowl. How does he keep finding himself in these championship games? Dakius Brinkley had a sack. He beats, I guess, the other D, Brinkley, on the Titans. And Brinkley does not win the Super Bowl MVP. It's Henley with 11 tackles. Dakius Brinkley arguably should have won it, though. He's now a Super Bowl champ, which is dope to see. Drake London retires. Nick Bosa, Josh Allen, Josh Kelly. We're seeing guys drafted in the series starting to retire, although he was like 24 when he got picked. Devontae Smith, Jesse Bates, Devon Achane, as well as Jalen Phillips. Andrew Thomas, he played a big role in this series, a complicated legacy. We traded a first-rounder for him. Was kind of up and down, especially considering the player the Giants drafted, Jonah Savaiinaya, developed into a really good offensive lineman. Patrick Surtain starting to regress a little bit more. He's only a 96. Honestly, I thought he was going to get hit worse than this. He's 33 and still really good. In terms of our Hall of Fame chase, Trayshawn Holden is over 20,000. That's pretty crazy. Now, he's only an 85. He was also really old when he was drafted, 24. But these numbers are insane. He's been in the league 8 years, 1,300 yards every year. Least amount of receptions is 98. Least amount of touchdowns is 14. Surtain, meanwhile, very close to the 15,000 Hall of Fame threshold. Might get it after this year. Him and Colin Wright, the 2 highest-rated corners in the NFL. A lot of the other guys have not aged gracefully. Sauce is out of the 90s. Witherspoon's only an 82. McDuffie's going down. Gonzo's going down. But Surtain is still in the high 90s, is the best in the league. So we are at negative $35 million. We're in a sticky spot. Ashton Genty's rating went down 6. I told you it was going to be rough. It happened quick with him. He stayed really good for a while, and then poof. I still want to tag Surtain. The problem is with negative $35 million, it's a lot harder to restructure all these deals. We've got 2 more years on Bo Nix. He's making $80 million this year and I think $60 next year. He's only an 82 overall and has taken a big piece of regression for the first time. We're going to restructure his deal. That'll save around 18. All we have to do is get back to even, which is when we can offer Surtain a deal. He says no, and then we give him the tag. So we're going to restructure Colin Wright. We're going to restructure Seth Jennings. And we're going to continue to make moves until we have just enough money to offer Surtain a small contract that he says no to, and we can continue to tag him. You could argue that we're kind of screwing over one of the greatest players in franchise history by continuously tagging him, but he's making so much money in these tags, $28 million a year. I think he can live with it. Corners don't make $28 a year, so I think he'll be okay. We're going to say yes to the option for Delvin Drummond. I don't want to pay him $30 million a year, but I don't want to pay him next year. We're going to have a lot more flexibility in 2 years, so we can potentially pay him then. So that was my thought process there. We don't have that many guys who are free agents after next season. Kane Kunashik is an interesting one, though, especially now that he will be our starting running back with Ashton Genty gone. Drew Sanders and Chris Brazel also will be leaving just because we do not have enough money to potentially pay them. Negative $25 million. That is not great. So we'll simulate through free agency. We'll see where our guys end up. I'm curious to see where Ashton Genty will end up playing. It's a pretty good class here as Will Anderson leaves Detroit for the Eagles. Drew Sanders goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Ashton Genty to the Arizona Cardinals, replacing Trey Benson, who's been really good there for a while. Drake May to the Falcons. Are they not satisfied with Lamar Jackson, who just won them a friggin' championship? In the 2032 draft, the sim gave us a stud at corner, John Dobson, 81 overall. So this could be a long-term replacement for one of Colin Wright or Pat Surtain. Didn't do so well otherwise. Got a couple of potential starting caliber players in the future, but nothing overly exciting. So now we are in, I believe, what is the 5th season of the day. Bo Nix now in his second to last year of the contract. And without Ashton Jeanty and Chris Brazzell, the offense is barely recognizable. Defense still has a lot of familiar faces, but we're quickly running out of players from our championship team. 5-2 at the midseason mark, number 4 scoring offense, number 2 scoring defense. Where was this team the first 3 seasons of the video? I mean, better late than never. Bo Nix, in his 10th season, is playing the best ball of his career. 74% completion percentage, passer rating above 122. Kane Kunashik has been pretty much even to Ashton Jeanty, so it seems like things worked out with letting him go, while Bo Nix, even though he regressed, is playing outstanding football. Negative $32 million for this upcoming offseason. I want to pay Kane Kunashik. I want him to be the long-term running back, but with dealing with the whole Surtain thing, it's not going to be very easy to manage. 10-7, we didn't play that well after the midseason mark, only going 500. The offense dipped severely. We still won the division, but it feels like we're kind of scratching and clawing our way into the playoff. We won 6 games in a row going into the bye week, 7 games in a row overall, but we just really have not played that well since then. The offensive production certainly slipped, even with Ryan Williams finishing 3rd in receiving. Does that say 2,073 receiving yards and 28 touchdowns for Jeremy Bernard? And then 25 sacks for both Micah Parsons and Dekias Brinkley. The sim went bonkers this year. Good season for Bo Nix. Definitely not as good as he was playing early, but still overall quite strong. Kunashik, 15 touchdowns. Great year for Williams, while Delvin Drummond is slowly but surely getting better each and every year. The line play was not great. Everybody allowed at least 8 sacks. And then defensively, I would say the strength of the team, 10.5 sacks for Michael, Seth, and Uyunglele, both with 8 each. We'll be playing the New England Patriots here in the first round. They still have Jordan Birch and Connor Litneski. Birch, though, is injured, so he will not play. Darius Taylor still at running back. Cade Klubnik still the starting quarterback. I guess things didn't really work out with Jay Pitts. And Klubnik has just stuck around, and he's turned into a solid player, not worthy of the number 1 pick, but he's turned into a productive NFL starter. We would get the win, though, 17-14, low-scoring defensive battle. The offense really has been shaky since the bye week. We've had to really rely on this defense, and they would save us in this game. We had 209 yards of offense and still won. Bo Nix was mediocre, but Cade Klubnik was worse. Kane Kunashik got the ball once. I take it that he got hurt probably. Our leading receiver only had 50 yards, but the defense played fantastic. We didn't even put up any big numbers, though, other than Surtain, who had 2 interceptions in year 13. Still the best corner in the NFL. He might be the best corner ever at this point, with his longevity, with his peak, with his performance in the playoffs, winning a Super Bowl MVP, and arguably should have won another. We've got the Jags in the second round. They still have Trevor Lawrence. A lot of teams have new quarterbacks, but not them. Colston Loveland, Yassine Willis, Brian Thomas Jr. all still here. Thomas has regressed a lot, though, and is also injured. We would beat the Jags, though, into the AFC Championship against the 1-seeded Bengals. So much for relying on the defense. 41-39, a shootout. Bo Nix completes 80% of his passes. Kunashik averages 9 yards a carry, and Ryan Williams does that. He had like 1 catch in the first round, 228 yards here in the second round, the most receiving yards in a game by a Bronco ever. Not just playoff game, any game ever. So we'll look at the Bengals. No more Joe Burrow. They drafted Kurt Allen in the first year at the sim. 95 speed. Dude can fly. They still have Oscar Delp, Jason Moore, Jamar Chase, Dylan Sampson. Those guys are still here, but otherwise, it is an entirely new team. Looks like the Giants won in the NFC. Are they going to tell us if we won? 4 touchdowns for Allen. That is not a good sign. Yeah, there you go. 30-20. We lose in the AFC title. 4 scores for Kurt Allen, outplaying Bo Nix. Jamar Chase, 7 for 121 and a pair. The defense, who was so good for most of the year, allows 69 points over our last 2 playoff games. 5 seasons through the long-term sim, we have not made it back to the Super Bowl. This year, by far the closest, going to the AFC title. Bo Nix has still never made the Pro Bowl. He's been a starter for a decade. Ryan Williams makes it, though. That's pretty cool. The only player on offense to get in, and then on defense, we didn't really have anyone either. So, there's Surtain. Okay, at least we got one. But not many Pro Bowlers, despite making it all the way to the conference championship. I guess we got Jake Camarda, but he's a punter, so whoop-de-doo. Bengals and Giants in the Super Bowl. New York makes it back. Can they win a second title? No. They get smacked by the Bengals, who could not win it all with Joe Burrow. They had to deal with the Mahomes Chiefs and then eventually the Bo Nix Broncos. But they do it with 95 speed Kurt Allen. If Kurt Allen can do this, then why not Clyde Poole? Minus the fact that he's probably a much better passer. He's like 3 inches taller, and he's probably like 30 pounds heavier. But otherwise, they're the same, right? 2.5 sacks for Dwayne Dale, 2 for Collins. Don't know who they are. I do know who Jason Moore is. He was supposed to be a top 10 pick, fell all the way to the second round. Worked out pretty well for the Bengals. Retirements include Justin Jefferson, Max Crosby, Patrick Mahomes. I noticed throughout the sim, quarterbacks don't really stick around. Justin Herbert done after 14 years. Jamar Chase retires a Super Bowl champion. Quinn Miners is done. He had a complicated legacy here. Never really played up to that big contract. We traded him away after season 4, but he did win a Super Bowl. Mello Dotson is in here. I saw Aleem McNeil as well. Now that we're going to recognize a lot of these retirements, and these guys we're going to know pretty well, we are going to talk about some of them. Not just the former Broncos, but the Kansas guys, including Mello Dotson, who is currently a higher legacy score than his former teammate Kobe Bryant. Kobe was obviously the big name in that cornerback room, but Mello Dotson was a great player in the NFL, despite being a 4th rounder, a key starter in the Dallas secondary with Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland, and a big piece of multiple Super Bowl titles. I think he ended up winning 3. Really impressive career for Mello Dotson, from a 4th rounder to nearly a decade-long starter and a whole lot of jewelry. Negative $49 million. How are we going to dig out of this hole? Well, after trying to figure it out, the answer is I don't think we can. We can't really restructure many of these deals. Most of our big contracts are near the end. Bo Nix is making $80 million this year, and there's not much we can do about it other than trade him. Problem is he's a 79 overall, making $80 million. His salary is higher than his rating, so nobody's really going to want him. So because of that, I don't really see a way for us to bring back Pat Surtain, Kane Kunashik, Benjamin Morrison, everyone here. Surtain's the biggest one because he's probably the greatest player in the history of the franchise, and I feel like it's important for him to retire as a Denver Bronco. The problem is we cannot find a way to bring him back, and since he's 34 years old, there's a good chance he's done after next season. We're going to have a lot of money next year. We're going to have a lot of flexibility opened up, but we might not be able to bring Surtain back because he might just retire after next year, and he's not going to be able to do it with us if that's the case. There's no other way we can really go about this, unfortunately. So now there's not many guys left from our Super Bowl teams. There's only like maybe 7 or 8 at this point. Bo Nix is lower than an 80 overall, not accounting for morale. Everybody else hasn't really gotten hit by regression yet. The younger guys of the series are really at the end of their peak, but still at their peak. Surtain is one of the highest rated free agents. He's joined by Abdul Carter, Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell. There's Kane Kunashik. I felt like for the price, I really wanted to bring back Kane. I was excited to see more of him as a starter, but we're not going to be able to. Surtain goes to the Steelers. Abdul Carter to the Dolphins. Hutchinson to the Chiefs. Kunashik ends up in New Orleans with Sam Onatulu, who never really developed in Cleveland, but is finally going to get fully the reins in New Orleans. Really pivotal draft here. I decided to make our first pick myself. I picked a running back, Raheem Easley, 79 overall power back. He will be the starter for the foreseeable future. I like his archetype. It might be a little ugly early on, but hopefully he plays pretty well early enough to where we won't miss Kane Kunashik too much. Only 3 guys left on the offense: Bo Nix, Ryan Williams, and Harold Fannin. We do have this superstar quarterback behind Bo, who I think is ready to take the reins pretty soon. Both quarterbacks are free agents at the end of the year, though. Defensively, still a lot of the familiar faces, but no Pat Surtain, which is weird. And that makes Bo Nix the final player from the original roster still on the team. We're going to have $170 million to spend this year. That's a stark difference from negative 50. Both quarterbacks are here. Neither of them want any money. And then we've got a lot of other guys to pay, but we're going to have plenty of money to do it. I think this is going to be a pivotal offseason for us because if we manage these contracts well, I think we could set ourselves up pretty well for the future. But let's see how we do here in the 6th season of the sim and the 11th season overall of the series here in 2034. Only one original Bronco left. Bo Nix is the last one. We're 3-4, the number 10 seed. We are only a game and a half behind Jalen Daniels and the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm not sure if Devin Neal is on the team anymore. He's pushing 30 at this point. I believe he is still their starter. Delvin Drummond, we're going to give a big extension to. I think he's on the peak of becoming really good. I decided to pay Beau Foote a big deal. He's developed nicely, even though at first I didn't think he was great value at number 5 overall. Tyree Hawkins we're going to extend. Harold Fannin is still a 95. I think we've got another good few seasons out of him for 3 years. Actually, yeah, we're going to do 3, and he will say yes to that. Mykel Williams, 95 overall at the age of 30. We're going to give him a 4-year extension. I've noticed that edge rushers don't really regress too badly at all, so I think he's got a lot of time left. Jawan Person we're going to extend. Jeffrey Boss is still a 96. We're going to bring him back for the next 4 years. Roderick Demps is a young guy who we're going to give 4 years to. He's a guy who I think is just going to get better and better. Samu Tumamampepe we're going to extend. And then from there, we have $12 million left over for both of the quarterbacks. I'm going to give Brett Brooks 7 years. He does not want any money. And on one hand, it's a little risky to give him 7 years because what if it doesn't work out? But he's not making any money, so it's fine. If he doesn't work out, it's not much of a cap loss. As for Bo Nix, he's been fine this year, despite only being like a 78. I think we are going to re-sign him, though, because he's like a third-string quarterback in terms of rating. Nobody's going to start him, so he might as well just chill on our team as a backup if he's not going to play anywhere else. So this is it for Bo Nix as a starter, most likely, and we finish 7-10. So no playoff run for Bo Nix in his 11th and likely final season as a starter. Bossa leads the NFL in tackles. Nix with very similar numbers to what we've seen from him throughout his career. Pretty much the same player, for better or worse. 11 scores for Easley, although he wasn't that good. Genty has kind of fallen off a cliff, though. He's only an 84. 2 years ago, he was a 97. As for Kane Kunashik, he also was not that impressive, so none of our former running backs were all that good. Ryan Williams with a great year. Delvin Drummond also over 1,000 yards. Beau Foote allowed 20 sacks. He wasn't even playing that bad when I extended him, but clearly that was a mistake. Defensively, 14 sacks for Uyunglele, 14 for Williams, 13 for Demps, only 2 for Seth Jennings. I take it that he probably got injured. Surtain did not have any interceptions, but he was a key starter throughout the year with the Steelers. Garrison Mullins wins the MVP for the Buffalo Bills. Hoss Haney in 10th. Mullins wins the Offensive Player of the Year. Williams in 10th. Depoy is Reuben Bain of the Bills. Nick Hatcher, I think he was drafted in the first season today. That's how far along we are. He wins the Offensive Player of the Year. Micah Parsons in year 14 wins the Depoy. Titans and Bucks, your 2 number 1 seeds, will be getting a Dolphins and Bucks Super Bowl. As we take a look at the Pro Bowl rosters, we're getting less and less recognizable names. I still know most of these guys. Ryan Williams is back there as a receiver. Tree Babalade gets there again. Mateo Uyunglele. We had Mykel Williams in there as well. It's crazy how good Babalade's been ever since he left us, though. Not sure how to feel about that. So it's the Battle of Florida in Super Bowl 69. And before I even see who wins, the first thing I see when I sim the week is that Patrick Surtain is retiring. The 1 year I needed him not to, because we would have had enough money to bring him back. The Buccaneers beat the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. Dylan Thieneman, the Super Bowl MVP, Sko Ducks. Sawyer Robertson, a Super Bowl champion, as he defeats Connor Harrell, who has stuck around despite being an undrafted player. And Robertson was picked in like the 6th round. So 2 guys who were not highly regarded as prospects. Chris Brazzell is on the Dolphins. He plays in another Super Bowl, does not win it, however. Thieneman wins the MVP off of 2 tackles and an interception. This game is too obsessed with interceptions in the Super Bowl. So we'll talk more about Pat Surtain in a second as we look at the other retirements. Chris Jenkins, Elijah Badger had like 7 or 8 straight 1,000-yard seasons with the Titans. Creed Humphrey, Zay Flowers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sauce Gardner, Brian Thomas, Lamar Jackson, Trayshawn Holden. Chris Braswell retires with the Broncos. I didn't even know he was on our team. That's kind of ironic. Quinyon Mitchell, Jordan Love. Marley Cook was a good player for a while with the Chargers. Marvin Grant is in there. So a lot of guys to go over. We're getting a lot more relevant players calling it a career. We'll start with Surtain, who has fallen into the 80s in 88. He really didn't regress as fast as I would have thought, though. He played well into his 30s. For a decade and a half, he was one of, if not the very best corners in the game. I mean, this might be the greatest corner ever. In the 5 seasons we had, he had 4, 2, 6, 7, and 6 interceptions. An 8-time Pro Bowler, 3-time best defensive back, 2-time interceptions leader. 8 Pro Bowls for a DB in this game is insane. I've had some great defensive backs only make it a couple times. He got there 8 times. 47 career interceptions, the all-time Denver Bronco leader. Sucks though we could not get him to retire with us. Again, he could have retired any other season, and it would have been on our team. But nope, he had to retire now, right before we could have paid him. Shout out Cody Barton. Still in the league. He's a 36 overall. Good Lord. Anyway, as I mentioned, Surtain recently broke the record for the most interceptions in team history. And the Broncos have had some good DBs. Champ Bailey was here for a while. Marvin Grant, 34 years old, 65 overall. Yeah, he fell off quick. His career is done after a decade, and the story with Grant goes back even deeper than this series because we had him in the Kansas dynasty. And going into the Kansas series, I wasn't all that familiar with Grant, but it didn't take long for him to become maybe my favorite player on the team. And even before I knew I was picking the Broncos in this series, I knew whoever we picked, I wanted Marvin Grant on my team. We had him the first 4 seasons of the series. He had over 100 tackles each year. Never made the Pro Bowl, was never an elite player, but was always really, really good. Shout out Marvin Grant, an unsung hero of the team captain, I think as early as either his rookie year or his second year. Phenomenal player in this series and the Kansas dynasty. Trayshawn Holden, I want to look at his numbers because they are just otherworldly. After 10 seasons with the Falcons, he's a 71 overall with 78 speed. Ouch. Ouch is also what opposing defensive coordinators said watching his film and trying to figure out how to guard him. His last season, he kind of fell off. He only had 837 yards, but the first 9 seasons of his career never had less than 98 catches, never had less than 1,280 yards, never had less than 14 touchdowns. This might be the greatest 9-year stretch at the wide receiver position ever. Made the Pro Bowl all 9 years. Offensive Player of the Year as a rookie. Offensive Player of the Year his second year. Offensive Player of the Year his third year. Offensive Player of the Year his fourth year. And then he won it again a few years later. That's 5 Offensive Player of the Years for the NFC. That's insane. How is Jeremy Bernard right next to him? I feel like Holden should be on a planet of his own. Not to mention he won a Super Bowl with the Falcons as well. Brian Thomas and Amon-Ra St. Brown, some other good receivers in this class retiring. Saint ended up with more catches and yards than him, but Holden had 158 touchdowns. That is a lot. I think this is a good time to take a quick look at where we are in terms of career stats across the entirety of the NFL now that we're over a decade into the future. Bo Nix is 4th amongst active quarterbacks in terms of passing yards. He was able to pass the 300 touchdown mark. There's Jalen Daniels, who does have more touchdowns than Bo Nix. He also has 15 more yards than Avery Johnson. We're holding on to that small gap. There's Hoss Haney, 112 career rating. He's been great with the Commanders, even though they really haven't won anything. Lamar Jackson, the current rushing leader. Devin Neal in 2nd. Ashton Jeanty in 4th. I think we're going to see guys like Neal and Jeanty kind of fade out, unfortunately, over the next couple of years. We already saw the receivers. These guys are putting up some insane numbers. Nearly 1,600 yards for Saint. Bunch of other guys over 10,000. Marvin Mims is not that far off either. I don't think he's on a team right now, which is why he's not showing up. He's probably at like 8,000 yards. Ryan Williams is above 7,000. And then defensively, Junior Colson leads in tackles. Bossa is in 4th. Surtain is in 6th. Drew Sanders is in 9th. 211 sacks from Micah Parsons. That is a lot. Michael Williams just over 100 with Takaias Brinkley. And then Surtain's 47 interceptions lead all active players. So a long list of retirements after the 2034 season. Many of our favorite names in this series continuing to fade off into retirement. Negative $8.6 million, but I'm not panicking. Because we just signed a bunch of guys to new deals, we can restructure just about everybody again. And now we're no longer paying a quarterback big money. Bo Nix is being paid like a backup, and Brett Brooks is on that super small 7-year deal. Nick's a 75. He regressed quite a bit once again. So Roderick Demps is going to get 5 years. I offered him earlier. I think he said no. Pritchard will get the 5th year, and everybody else we're going to let go of with $5 million. Except for this guy, Andrew Mitchell. I think the game must have signed him on its own. I want him for the next 7 years because he looks like a machine. So we are not letting him go anywhere at kicker. Into free agency. Will Anderson is back. He cannot seem to find a home. James Livingston is here. Hi. It's kind of crazy that the antagonist of this series in this universe was an offensive lineman. Like, who would have thought? Caleb Williams leaves the Bears for the Packers. While I don't like Green Bay, it is a little funny. I can't lie. Aiden Hutchinson goes to Carolina. As for the draft, Nick Pryor in the first round. We drafted another quarterback, Nick Montague, in the 4th. Going into the 2035, year 12 overall, year 7 of the sim, we have a new starting quarterback. Brett Brooks will take over the reins with Bo Nix as the backup. Otherwise, not many major changes with our roster. I'm fascinated to see how the new quarterback does, given that things have kind of been complacent with Bo. In the 7 seasons today, we only made the playoffs twice. I was hoping we would get more from Nix in the long-term sim. He never did make the Pro Bowl as a starter. So in Brett Brooks' first year as a starter, we will not be playing in the wild card round because we are the number 1 seed. I'm not sure how 11-6 got us the top seed, but I'm not complaining. 19 sacks for Mykel Williams, only second behind 25 for Will Anderson. Bo Nix was good in limited opportunity, but look at Brett Brooks. 34 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. That's better than Bo Nix ever was. Ryan Williams with a big year, and then defensively, 19 sacks for Williams, 17 for Mateo Uyunglele, only 3 for Seth Jennings. I'm experimenting with him at linebacker. Clearly didn't really work out. So we're going to play against the New England Patriots here in the second round. Brett Brooks' first playoff game after his terrific regular season. Do we beat the Patriots? I think they have a rookie starting at quarterback. No, we lose. 22-19. 1 in seed to 1 and done. So their rookie, Stanley Rayner, as the 7th seed, brings him to the AFC title. They still have Cade Klubnik, and they also still have DJ Uyunglele. Drummond with over 100 yards. Williams was solid. Just didn't get enough, though, overall offensively. 2 sacks for Connor Litneski, 2 for Jordan Birch. The fact that those guys are on the same team is insane. As for the Pro Bowl, Brett Brooks is on the roster. Bo Nix, in 11 seasons as a starter, did not make it once. Brooks is 1 for 1. That is not a good look for Bo Nix. Stud Baker, our starting center, gets in. Tree Babalade is there again. Mykel Williams is in, as is Jeffrey Bassa. No Mateo Uyunglele, though, even though he had 17 sacks. It'll be the Patriots and the Lions in the Super Bowl. 6th seed versus the 7th seed. New England with their rookie at quarterback. And ultimately, they would fall just short. 19-10, the Lions, who won the Super Bowl all the way back in year 1, win it as the 7th seed with 3 road games led by Patrick Albright in his 6th season out of Texas A&M. I do not know who that is. I guess things didn't really work out here with Ja'Cory Brown. They do have a really good running back, Marcus Short, who they drafted in the sim. They still have Sam Laporta, 2-time champion. Elijah Rushing, Damani Maxon. Love to see Damani Maxon as a Super Bowl champion. He's been with the Lions for 8 years, 93 overall at the age of 30. He hasn't really developed into like some elite player, but he's been a good starter for them and a team captain for almost a decade. Retirements, Penei Sewell, Brian Brzee, Javon Bullard, Rosso Lugalu Masayuli hung around as a decade as a starter after being a 7th round pick. Good for him. Micah Parsons, Bo Nix, hello! After only 12 years, Bo Nix was a backup for 1 season, and he's like, all right, I'm out. Roma Dunze, I saw Zariah Beeson, Devin Neal is in there. So we'll start with Bo Nix, our franchise quarterback from day 1, 69 overall at the age of 36 years old. We've gone through a bumpy road in this series with Bo Nix, up and down early on, but we stuck by him and it paid off as he was an integral piece in us winning 2 Super Bowls. Now, I will say, looking back on it, I would not have given him the extension because our team was very stagnant with him during the sim. He had the 21 interception season in the first year, Never made the Pro Bowl, was always a good but not great quarterback who we probably should never have paid $50 million to. I mean, what are we going to do? Not pay the guy who just won the Super Bowl? But still, in hindsight, didn't really work out. 4,600 yards, 305 touchdowns in the air, 33 on the ground. He breaks John Elway's touchdown mark, but he is a little bit behind him in yards. Devin Neal calls it a career. 71 overall, how the mighty have fallen. Devin Neal and Jalen Daniels finally separated. Neal was with the Raiders for a decade, and obviously the two of them were in college together for 4 years. For being a 99 overall, I feel like Devin Neal never really played to his talent level in the NFL. He was a very good running back. 3-time Pro Bowler, best running back in 2029. I always expected a little bit more out of him, especially after that great senior season with the Jayhawks. It was so much fun using him, though, as a senior. That was quite the experience. Ashton Genty's a 69 overall. He's as good as gone, so we might as well talk about him as well. Genty had a really good career that I also think could have been a little bit more. The injuries held him back during the actual series and also the long-term sim as well. 3 seasons with over 1,000 yards. His efficiency was really high, higher than that of Devin Neal. 4-time Pro Bowler. His yardage total was a little less than Neal because he played less games. I think if he stays healthy, he's a Hall of Famer. I ended up going back in time a year because we haven't gotten to talk about Marvin Mims yet, but I figured we should probably do that. I wanted to sign him so we could see his career stats, but we did not have enough money. That's when we were broke. But we can still go by season for Mims, who certainly played a big role in this series. He had, like Bo Nix, a very up and down career with us. First 3 seasons between 900 and 1,000 yards. Obviously, the injuries really hurt him. We extended him in 2027 because I knew how good he was, but that's when he was at his worst physically. Well, after 2027, the injuries were no longer a problem, and we saw him hit his full potential. 96, 1,420, and 11 scores. That started a run of 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He played well in Seattle his last 2 years with Avery Johnson and company. 2-time Pro Bowler, made it as a rookie, as a special teamer, and then I'm pretty sure he made it in Season 5, the year where he had 1,400 yards. So shout out Marvin Mims. Not a Hall of Famer, but Hall of Very Good. He certainly had an interesting journey throughout this series. I'm happy that we stuck by him and were able to keep him around for a while. As I mentioned, Bo Nix broke the touchdown record, but not the yardage record. It's interesting seeing some of these records being broken, and I think we're going to see more get hit. I think Genty is the rushing touchdown record. Ryan Williams has already passed the receiving touchdown record. I would have thought someone like Demaryius Thomas would have had a bigger stranglehold on that. We're seeing more guys go down. Jeffrey Bassa seems to be the next victim. He is only an 86. Everybody else is still in the 90s, though, for the most part. A lot of guys did not go down as fast as I thought, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I feel like the regression was kind of random throughout the sim, which is good. It should be random. It shouldn't be predictable, and it wasn't. Colin Wright, I think, still has some good years left. We're going to give him a 2-year extension. We have $20 million left. Ryan Williams wants a lot more than 20. I know he's going to regress quick. I'm not going to give him 40 a year. I will give him the franchise tag for like 40 this year. And then we re-signed Dobson, the corner, as well, which means Mateo Uiagalelei we're going to let go of. That might be bold because he's probably more impactful as a pass rusher than both Ryan Williams and Colin Wright. But there's a reason why I'm okay with letting him go, and I'll explain shortly. Uiagalelei headlines at the top of the free agency list along with Will Anderson again. Why does nobody want Will Anderson? He's really, really good. We magically made $10 million appear out of thin air, so we're going to try to sign Kobe Bryant. I didn't restructure anybody. I don't know how we got that money, but he ended up saying yes. I needed another third corner, so we add Kobe Bryant, a guy who obviously I'm quite fond of. He's been with the Bucks for over a decade. Mateo Uiagalelei, meanwhile, did not sign. As for our draft, got a couple solid players, but nothing overly spectacular. Now there's really not many recognizable names at the top of this list. We still have Takaius Brinkley and Avery Johnson at 99 overall, as Uiagalelei signs for nothing with the Ravens. Well, I would have gladly taken him for that price. As we take a look at the team, Brooks is now firmly the quarterback with Bo Nix gone. The reason why I'm okay with letting go of Uiagalelei is because I believe in Seth Jennings, who's already hurt. but he's only out for a week. That might be an injury dating back to last year. Although, what high ankle sprain takes 9 months to recover from? Anyway, I think Jennings, in a more natural position that he's fit for, will play a lot better, and we're not going to miss Uyunglele as much as we might think. We're 11-6, top 10 in every major statistical category, so this team clearly is quite good. Another 19-sack season for Tykius Brinkley. Holy hell. Brett Brooks was really good again. Not quite as good as last year, but still really solid. I mean, he's playing like one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And to think we are paying him this for the next 5 years. 18 touchdowns for Easley, 16 for Ryan Williams. That is a lot between two players. And then defensively, I see some big numbers. 16 sacks for Seth Jennings, 14 for Mykel Williams. I have had so much faith in this kid Jennings since we recruited him out of high school. Never really put it together at Kansas. Never put it together in the NFL until the age of 30. But finally, we figured out how to use him, and he had a great year. I feel so vindicated. I've been tooting this guy's horn for a damn decade. Sam Onatulu wins the MVP. What a season for him in New Orleans. Never really got a chance in Cleveland. There are way too many highly rated quarterbacks across the league. That we will fix for the Madden 26 series. But when he's gotten a chance to play with the Saints, he's been awesome. Ryan Williams, the Offensive Player of the Year in the AFC. Jennings, 4th for Depoy. Uyunglele in 9th. Still playing quite well with the Ravens. As for the NFC, Hatcher wins it for the Saints. I think he just won it for the Lions. How does Detroit let him go? And then shout out Cortez Boyd in 10th. In the final draft of the series, he fell all the way to the 6th round. I said at the time he should not have fallen that far. I almost ended up picking him. Goes to the Saints, where he's been a great player with Sam Onatulu. We've got Buffalo in the first round. We beat them by the score of 26-21. Brooks' first career playoff win. He's picked off 3 times. It's the Kerry chosen special. 3 interceptions in a playoff win. The Bills quarterback Mullins was sacked 7 times through the air. Drummond was really good, although Ryan Williams only had 1 catch for 8 yards. I've noticed that Williams does not play well in playoff wins, but he goes off when we lose. Meats only plays well in losses, man. Defensively, 3 sacks for Seth Jennings, 2 for Mykel Williams. I always knew this was in Seth Jennings. It took him a while to tap into it, but the guy is a really, really good football player. I always knew it was in him, and I feel vindicated. He now has 19 sacks, combining the regular season and the playoffs. We've got the Titans in the second round. They still have Alex Orji, who's developed into a really good player for them, and we lose. I guess Alex Orji owns me. First in the national championship, now this. 28-22, Titans get the job done. Orji didn't play. It turns out, I ended up checking, he's hurt. So Adam Moran played, and he was pretty good, leading the Titans to the win. See, Ryan Williams, 134 yards in the loss. What can I say? Did not send a lot of pressure. Williams had a sack. Jennings did not. So the Titans will play New England. The Patriots kind of seem like the next great team. That rookie quarterback who beat us in the playoffs, he's really good. The Patriots are headed back to the Super Bowl, where they will play against the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see if the kid Reiner can get the win as we take a look at the Pro Bowl rosters. Brett Brooks, 2 for 2. Easily makes the Pro Bowl after all those touchdowns. Ryan Williams makes it. Harold Fannin makes it. Foot, the left tackle, makes it. Mykel Williams is in. And then he was the only defensive player, but we had a lot of guys on the offensive side of the ball. The Saints with Sam Onatulu made it to the Final Four, where they lost to the Eagles. I guess Sam Onatulu always loses in the semis. In his 2 years as a starter at USC, they lost in the semifinals, and they do it again. The Eagles end up winning the Super Bowl over New England. So Stanley Reiner, in his 2 NFL seasons, makes the Super Bowl and loses both of them. Uyunglele and Klubnik both still here. Gregory Weaver, the quarterback of the Eagles, I do not know who that is. Kevin Hayward, 13 for 142 and a score despite the loss. Don't know who he is, but doing everything he can to try to lead the Patriots. Defensively, a good game from Thomas Davis. He's been on this Eagles team for a while. Really, really good player. Connor Litneski, Azare Thomas, both still here in New England. As we take a look at the list of retirements in 2036. Trent McDuffie is done. Aiden Hutchinson. Jeremy Bernard is going to go to the Hall of Fame. Great player in the NCAA Next Up series. Played at 4 different schools in his collegiate career. Junior Colson, Kobe Bryant, Keon Coleman, Holland Pierce, Drew Sanders. I'm definitely happy I never have to play against Junior Colson again. That guy was a thorn to our side. Brock Purdy retires. So a number of former Broncos. We'll start with Kobe Bryant, who we had for the final season of his career. Obviously more known for his time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He played there for a decade and was really, really good. Obviously had that terrific senior season at Kansas, leading him to going in the first round of the NFL draft. I didn't think we would see a defensive back season like him ever again. Javier Callaway, though, might have been even better with 10 interceptions. Drew Sanders is done. 71 overall with the Colts. One of the most underrated players of this series, without a doubt. Did not play in season 1, remember, because of the torn Achilles. So we had him for 4 seasons where he was really good. Last 3 years, 113, 147, 144 tackles. He continued to play well into the sim, had 11.5 sacks 1 year with the Falcons. Never put up the crazy numbers, but was a 4-time Pro Bowler. Defensive Player of the Year in 2031. I must have missed that. Those really aren't DPOY numbers, but shout out Drew Sanders. As good as Jeffrey Bossa was, it was a duo, and we couldn't have done it without Drew Sanders. At times, he was our second best player on the defense after Bossa. Devin Dye retires. He won multiple Super Bowls with the Cowboys. Really solid player for us with the Kansas series in the first 2 years. And I was going to draft him, but the Cowboys picked him a few spots ahead of us. Obviously ended up being a good decision on their part. Later in the draft, we ended up picking his safety mate, Javon McIntyre, who ended up being quite a bit worse than Devin Dye. But McIntyre was also a 7th round pick, so how upset can we really get? Let's take another look at the career stats. CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson sit atop the passing leaderboard. Both of them still with their respective teams. The AFC South has had such consistent quarterback play. KD Daniels, the leading rusher. He's the only running back drafted in the actual series left. 1,600 yards for Keon Coleman, who recently retired. Him and Jeremy Bernard, certainly Hall of Famers. Ryan Williams, over 10,000 yards, which is more than Jeremiah Smith, who's now with the Falcons. Bossa will become the new active tackle leader with Junior Colson retiring. Michael Williams at over 130 sacks now. Derek Stingley, by far the active leader in picks, although I'm pretty sure he did retire as well. Only $4 million to spend. Luckily, we don't have that many guys to pay. We'll give easily the 5th year. Ryan Williams, we're going to give him the franchise tag. I'm not giving him $130 million. He's a 98 with morale, 92 overall. He's starting to regress a little bit, and I'd be a little less scared if he was in the high 90s because he would have more room to stay really good. But as a 92, he's going to fall quick. In 2 years from now, he might not even be in the 80s. That means we are going to have to let go of Brett Pritchard, which honestly is fine. I think he'll be better off in a different scheme anyway. So he will hit the open market and find a new home. 2036 free agency, and then the 2037 draft. A lot of pass rushers. Ruben Bain, Mateo Uiagalelei, Thomas Davis wins a Super Bowl with the Eagles and then says, I'm out. We talked about Davis a lot as a prospect. 6'1", 235, super undersized. Never caused an issue for him. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Had a 24-sack season with the Eagles. Jordan Birch now an 89. He's regressed quite a bit, but is still really good. Bossa's only an 81. Fannin is starting to go down. I've seen the tight ends last pretty long. Seems like it's going to hit Harold Fannin quite a bit, though. The other guys are still quite good, but there's not many guys left. Uiagalelei signs a long-term deal with the Bengals. Thomas Davis to the Bears. Colston Loveland leaves the Jags after over a decade in a championship. He'll go to the Bengals. As for our drafts, we picked 2 running backs, including a 78 with Quentin Ballard. The kid we have currently, he has 2 years left with the 5th-year option. I do want to make sure that we are going to keep him, but as a 91, I would think he'll be the long-term guy. Brooks now an 87, and then the defense starting to run out of faces. Colin Wright, Seth Jennings, Michael Williams, and Jeffrey Bossa, the only players left defensively. 4-13, what in the world? How are we so bad? Ryan Williams was top 3 in receiving. Brett Brooks was good. I mean, he wasn't as good as he's been, but he wasn't that bad. Easily only 3.8 yards a carry. Ryan Williams was fantastic, though. 17 touchdowns. Oh, dear God. That's why we won 4 games. The offensive line was brutal. Defensively, Seth Jennings had 4 sacks. Back to mediocrity, I guess. Michael Williams had 11. Maybe we'll get a consistent stretch of seasons from Seth Jennings in his 30s. Maybe it'll happen. Is that too much to ask? Here's the Pro Bowl rosters. Ryan Williams makes it. I recognize some of these names, but less and less. James Livingston made it. Yuck. Most of these guys, though, I don't know. They would have been drafted during the sim today. Jaguars and Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Dallas makes it back, and they would win. Their 9th Super Bowl championship, 4th of the series, with a 3rd different quarterback. It's Travis Jacobs. Don't know who that is, but congratulations. 2037 retirements. Caleb Downs, Tyler Smith after 16 years, Shamar Turner, really good player. Jalen Daniels is done. I'm excited to talk about him. Walter Noland, Travion Ford, Jordan Birch, Jeffrey Bossa, Malachi Starks, Will Anderson, Emory Jones, Damon Clowney, who never really continued his momentum after that 14-sack season with the Steelers. Terrion Arnold's in there, Dallas Turner. So we'll start with Jalen Daniels, whose legacy score at 18,000 will be enough to push him into the Hall of Fame. I'm really happy for him. Such a fun player to use in that one season at Kansas. He was the 4th overall pick by the Raiders and stuck there his entire career. Never won anything with the Raiders. I think the farthest he made in the playoffs was the 2nd round, which we beat him in year 3. That ended up being his best season after a rough start. It took him a year and a half to get going. Never was as good as he was in year 3 of his career, but he was always really solid. Never made the Pro Bowl, though, despite being a really, really good quarterback. So he's not going to make the Pro Bowl. Never made the Super Bowl, never won the Super Bowl, but he is going to the Hall of Fame. We'll take that. Travion Ford retires. We got him in the transfer portal in Season 1 of the Kansas series. We had him in Seasons 2 and 3 coming from Toledo. Never did figure out if he was related to Tyson Ford. He had a really good career, though, mostly with Cleveland. He was an impact player on the Kansas defense, went in the 1st round. Wasn't really all that good until his 2nd contract, but he had like 6 or 7 seasons of double-digit sacks in a row. Only 1 Pro Bowl, though, which feels low. Jordan Birch retires as a Cardinal. Ironic, because that's where he's playing in real life. Legacy score of 22,000. He's an 87 overall, which I think fittingly is the exact same rating he was when he got drafted. So that feels awfully appropriate. Spent pretty much his entire career with New England, where he lived up to the billing of the generational defensive prospect who had, I think, 24 sacks his senior season at Oregon. Something ridiculous. He was a monster in the NFL. Had a bunch of double-digit sack seasons. Had 20 in 2032 and played well late into his career. 16.5 sacks his 3rd to last year. 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Best Defensive Lineman, 1-time Defensive Player of the Year. His former teammate at Oregon, Jeffrey Bossa, retires as well. He is a 73. He was in the 90s, I think, 3 years ago. He fell quick. But nonetheless, a phenomenal career. I think during our Super Bowl run, during those 2 seasons, Jeffrey Bossa was our best player. He was really, really good. He was a rotation player as a rookie and still had like 20 TFLs. Became a full-time starter after that, and he was the best linebacker in the league. I mean, my goodness, was he good. He averaged 150 tackles a year, 33 TFLs the final season, continued to play well into the sim, over 100 tackles every year until his last 2 seasons, where he was still in the 90s. 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time league leader in tackles. It's a shame he's just going to miss out on the Hall of Fame by around 1,000 points. He should get in. He was a Luke Kuechly, Patrick Willis type of player. 1,500 tackles, the current active leader in the NFL, and I would guess the all-time leader for the Broncos. $118 million to spend. We're going to let these offensive linemen go after they were really bad last year. Ryan Williams is starting to fall. He goes down from a 92 to an 89, and guess what? It's only going to get worse. I do want him back, though, and he is still good. He's only 31. He says no, so we're going to tag him for $44 million. John Dobson is oddly cheap, so I'll take him for 5 more years. Seth Jennings is back for 3. Marquis Clancy, we're going to sign for 6 years. Another super cheap deal. Colin Wright, we're going to re-sign for 1 more year. I think this will be his last season. Harold Fannin is back for 2 more years. And now we're pretty much going to put everything on auto. At this point, there's not really many moves we can make. We've got our last few guys left. I think there's 5 players left on the team with Jeffrey Bossa gone. So we're really focused on just wrapping these guys' careers up. We'll see if we go on any runs with this group. I think this is a good team. I'm oddly confident in this group. With Bossa gone, the game signed Tristan Jernigan, who's a good player, spent a lot of time with the Chargers. So we didn't do very well, unfortunately. Finishing with a record of 7-10. Brooks has gotten worse every year. 15 touchdowns for Easley. Ryan Williams, really good again. His production has not gone down. Our leading tackler only had 74. We did have 3 double-digit sack guys, including 13.5 for Seth Jennings. Seth Jennings FC, we are back up. Mykel Williams is pushing like 35 years old. He had 11.5 sacks. He has not regressed at all, which is wild. The Bills win the Super Bowl. Finally, they win a championship, defeating the NFL MVP Eugene McKinney and the Carolina Panthers. Another year of retirements. Anthony Richardson retires as a Texan. That's nasty. Alex Orji retires, 13 years with the Titans. Really good player. Never won a Super Bowl, but was close. James Livingston, thank goodness, I will not miss you. Colin Wright, Colston Loveland, Chance Rucker. Malik Muhammad was a high pick. Good player with the 49ers. Azareye'h Thomas at corner was a starter for a decade with the Patriots. Let's look at Colin Wright, who retires at 35. The same age as Patrick Surtain. I kind of figured, based on Surtain's career path, this is when Colin Wright would retire. Wright was a really solid player. We had him his first 3 seasons during the actual series. Never made the Pro Bowl. You could argue that's a little disappointing for a 5th overall pick, but he was a really good starter. Never the level of Pat Surtain. He was always the Robin to Surtain's Batman, but a very good player. In terms of our re-signings, Mykel Williams gets a big 3-year extension for $84 million. We couldn't re-sign Ryan Williams, but we do bring him back in free agency. He's only an 83. The game signed us a 95 overall stud at wide receiver, though, Bruce Foster. So Ryan Williams no longer the number 1 after holding that spot for a good almost decade at this point. I think we're down to 4 or 5 players left from the actual series on the team. 91 overall. We should be making playoff runs, but we only went 8-9. Brooks was mediocre. Where's the guy we had those first couple of years? 23 touchdowns for Easley. He might break Ashton Genty's touchdown mark. Ryan Williams under 1,000 yards for the first time in a while. Not because he didn't play well, though. It's because he only played 10 games. The new guy, Foster, was pretty good. I expected more, though. We're paying him $50 million a year. And then defensively, 15.5 sacks for Mykel Williams, 13 for Demps. Mykel Williams does not age. I noticed Drummond did not play at all. That's because he tore his Achilles in the preseason, which sucks because this was always probably going to be his last year here. He didn't even get to play, which really is unfortunate for him. Simulating through the Super Bowl, the Steelers, their 7th title. Victor Charles wins the MVP as they beat the Vikings. Retirements here in 2039. Raylan Wilson calls it a career. Thomas Davis, Ruben Bain, KJ Sampson, some very good edge rushers. Mateo Uiagalelei, Harold Fannin, Tree Babalade. Not a very long list, but a lot of notable guys. James Pierce, Jalen Milroe, Damani Maxon, Peter Woods. We'll start with Tree Babalade, who leaves a complicated legacy. As a starter with us, he was never that good. Although he got better, we let him go anyway, and he ended up being really solid for a while with the Ravens, 3-time Pro Bowler. Harold Fannin at tight end, a lifer. Stuck his entire career here in Denver. Took him around half a year to become the starter. 1,000 yards his second year. Never eclipsed that again, but had between 600 and 800 yards pretty much every year after that. 2-time Pro Bowler. Really, really solid player for a while. Mateo Uiagalelei will just miss out on the Hall of Fame, but he had a really good career. His best years came after the actual series, though. He was a rotation guy the first 2 seasons. Had a lot of TFLs. The flashes were there. And then once the sim starts, boom, 12.5 sacks. Then 16. Had 5 double-digit sack seasons. He only made the Pro Bowl once, but won the Defensive Player of the Year in 2030. Kansas legend Damani Maxon, our versatile chess piece. We put him at sub linebacker, we put him at safety, we put him at slot corner. Dude was a weapon all over the field. Had a good career in the NFL, mostly in Detroit. Statistically, his best season might have been his last year, though, with the Eagles. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the year he made the Pro Bowl. So he ended up aging pretty well. In terms of ratings, Ryan Williams is a 78. Mykel Williams is still a 92. He's barely gotten worse, and he's like 36. 173 sacks, the most in the NFL, although Dekias Brinkley is right behind him at 171. Williams is a 78. Jennings is starting to go down, and those are the only 3 guys left. Mykel Williams, Ryan Williams, and Seth Jennings, the final 3. for the Broncos with Harold Fannin retiring this year. The team looks pretty irrecognizable at this point, but we go 14-3. Hello! Brooks leads the league in passing. Where was this? 32 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, easily with 12 scores, only played in 11 games. Through the air, Bruce Foster was really good. Zaire Johnston was really good. No Ryan Williams, though. I think the game cut him. That's sad. Defensively, 4 double-digit sack seasons. Mykel Williams had 19! He's 36 years old! Eugene McKinney wins the MVP again. Brooks in 10th. Mykel 3rd. For Depoy, 23,000 legacy score. Ended up signing Williams, who is a 75, not accounting for the morale. That's why we didn't sign him to that big deal. I knew that was going to happen. We got the Bengals in the divisional round. We beat them 34-10. New England in the AFC Championship. And did we win? Looks like the Giants are playing in the Super Bowl. No, we lost. Stanley Reiner back in the Super Bowl again, hoping this time he can win the whole thing. Brooks played quite well. He's the QB1 in the Pro Bowl for the AFC. Avery Johnson is the QB1 in the NFC. He's an 85. He's regressed a lot, but he's still playing quite well. Mykel Williams is there. Demps is there. Otherwise, I know like none of these names. Who are these people? Completely irrecognizable league at this point as the Patriots win the Super Bowl. Reiner finally wins his championship. We are at the end of 2040. We are getting very close to the end of the road. Harrison Mevis, thicker kicker, retires. Coleman Vivian is done. I made a mistake with Vivian. I put him in the final draft class of the series, even though he stayed at Michigan his senior year. Did not allow a sack until the national championship. Athia Kiaho with the sack. His first full sack of his career. Mykel Williams is done after 16 years. Abdul Carter retires. Ryan Williams retires. So of the 3 guys left on our team, 2 of them are done this year. Mykel Williams is a fascinating decision because he didn't have to retire. Jordan Allen, former Kansas State player, he was really good there for a while. We'll start with some of the other guys in this cycle. Hoss Haney is done after just 12 years, mostly with the Commanders. He actually never threw a pass in Jacksonville. Never won anything with Washington, but was really, really good. To think the guys who were drafted today are now retiring. That's how far along we are. Never made the Pro Bowl, but was a very good player with them. Ryan Williams retires. He's a 67. Youch. 79 speed. He fell off quick, but he was really good for a while. 14-year career. We had him his first 2 seasons. It didn't really click for him until year 6. Then he really got it going with, I think, 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, 3-time Pro Bowler, best receiver and offensive player of the year in 2036, just shy of the 1,000 receptions, but he had over 1,300 yards and 127 touchdowns. The yards and catches are second most among active players. Touchdowns, he is first. As for Mykel Williams, he's still an 89. He barely got worse. He could play into his 40s if he wanted to. We had him for 4 seasons in the series, double-digit sacks 3 times, but he was always really inconsistent on a snap-by-snap basis. We gave him the extension the following season, and then the word I would use to describe his performance in the sim is consistent. He was really, really good. Career high of 19 sacks twice, including the last season of his career. He peaked at 37 years old. 6-time Pro Bowler, never won any awards. He was never a Depoy level guy, but he was always really, really, really good for 15 years. 192 sacks does not eclipse 200, but that's got to be top 5 all time. Maybe a little bit of a longevity merchant, but still phenomenal player. He is certainly going into the Hall of Fame. So with that, we're down to 1. Seth Jennings is the last man standing. And then across the league, there are a couple more guys I want to see retire. Dekias Brinkley, who's still a 96. I want to see what happens with the end of Avery Johnson's career. Other than those guys, that's really about it. In terms of the highest rated players in the league, I only know these first 3. Although DJ Uiagalelei is still kicking it at 40. So Seth Jennings is the last guy here. When he goes and when some of those other guys go, that's when we will be done. Still a really good roster, though, 88 overall. We only ended up going 9-8, though, missing out on the postseason. As we take a look at our numbers, Brooks was pretty solid again. He's nearing the end of his contract. Pretty good deal, I must say. Defensively, I'm really curious about Seth Jennings. Mostly, he had 8 sacks. Pretty solid. Finished 4th on the team. as we simulate into the offseason. Blowout in the Super Bowl. The Jaguars take care of business against the Rams. Adam Stevenson, the Super Bowl MVP. 2041 retirements. At this point, I don't really know any of these people. Dekias Brinkley retires with the Jets. Harris Sewell, Andres Borregales, we had him for a year. And then Atticus Sappington, why is his name blurred? Randy O'Dwyer retires, the first player drafted here in the sim, had a very good career with the Rams. So Dekias Brinkley will retire with a higher legacy score than any drafted player in the series at nearly 30,000. Spent pretty much his whole career with the Falcons, although played his last year with the Jets. He's still a 90. Like Michael Williams, he hasn't really regressed at all. We first met Brinkley as an 18-year-old freshman. Here we are 18 years later. He's one of the best defensive players to ever do it. I didn't know if I wanted to redshirt him or play him his first season at Kansas. Didn't take me long to realize this guy was different. And in the NFL, he was pretty different. 25 sacks, 23 in his last year with Atlanta. He only made 6 Pro Bowls, but he led the league in sacks 3 times, deployed twice, including his second to last year. 201.5 sacks. In his 12 seasons in Atlanta, he had double-digit sacks in all of them. Didn't hit that mark with the Jets, but was still pretty productive. Avery Johnson's a free agent, so we might as well talk about him as well. 77 overall. He regressed pretty quickly, but had a really good career with the Seahawks. Of course, he made the Super Bowl in just his second season, threw 3 interceptions in that game and lost, and never made it back. Much like Jalen Daniels, he was great throughout his career, but he didn't really win anything. So Avery Johnson and Jalen Daniels combined to go 0-1 in the Super Bowl. 4-time Pro Bowler, Offensive Rookie of the Year, won the best quarterback once. Jennings is now the last guy. Once he retires, that's it. That's the end of the road. He's lower than an 80 overall, so I kind of think this is it for him. Brooks' contract ended up expiring. The game ended up re-signing him along with Easley, so the two of them stick around for what could be the final season of the series. I think we are in season 19 overall, year 14 at the sim. We ended up winning the division, 13-4. Connor Letneski still second in sacks. He's still really good, now playing for the Jets as well. I guess that's where the old pass rushers go. Brooks signed this year for $7 million. His agent must suck. He must have the Bishop Sycamore of agents. Couldn't have got him more than 7? As for the defense, Seth Jennings finished with... Oh, he's not even here. The game cut him. So he didn't finish with any sacks. We ended up signing him back for the playoff run, as we've got the Raiders here in the first round, and we're just going to sim right to the Super Bowl. We noticed we're not there. It's the Cowboys and the Bills. We end up going 1 and done. We lose to the Raiders, unfortunately, as the Bills end up beating the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. As for retirements, Seth Jennings is here. After 15 seasons, he is done, and that means we are done. Avery Johnson officially retires as well, for what it's worth. So let's start with Seth Jennings, and then we will recap the series as a whole. Legacy score over 8,000, did not make the Hall of Fame, but a really solid career. We recruited him in Season 1 of the Kansas Dynasty, and I always knew there was a really good player inside. Elite development trait. He passed the eye test in high school, showed a lot of flashes early in his Kansas career, but never put it together. I still drafted him in the second round. Took him a while to get going in the NFL, but he finally did in year 5, had a 16-sack season in there, his only Pro Bowl appearance, 130 TFLs, 100.5 sacks on the nose. So even though he never really was all that consistent, I would say I was kind of right. I mean, the guy had 100 sacks. That's an awesome career. So we make it to the preseason here in 2043. Everybody on the team is gone. The oldest player is now 31 years old. There are still a few guys left who have been drafted. Connor Letneski still a 91. I don't really think we need to wait to see him retire. None of the QBs are left other than DJ Uiagalelei. Jaleel McLaughlin is also still here at running back. 42 years old, 33 overall. Why did he get 64 touches in 2040? We traded him to the Cardinals, I think after the first season, and he stuck around. Don't know why they gave him the ball 64 times. He's not the only former Bronco who has stayed in the league. Troy Franklin is a 52 overall at the age of 40. That ended up being a bad trade in hindsight. 3,000-yard seasons with the Cowboys. And then he just stuck around. I think he ended up winning 2 Super Bowls in Dallas. Let's take a look at all of the Hall of Famers in this series. Coach Bonnet not amongst them. unfortunately. His legacy scored around 6,000. Mahomes is the highest. Amongst drafted players, it's Takayas Brinkley, shortly followed by Trayshawn Holden. Teammates in Atlanta, shout out the Falcons, nailing those picks. Our highest was Mykel Williams, who I think is 5th or 6th overall in terms of the drafted players at 23,000. Avery Johnson was the highest at the quarterbacks. Not sure how to feel about that. There's Dante Moore. He's still in the league. He'll be a Hall of Famer. Really good career with the Cardinals. Never won a title, though. Pat Surtain, a Hall of Famer. Jalen Daniels, a Hall of Famer. Ryan Williams is down there. In terms of the drafted quarterbacks, there were not many who won Super Bowls. None of the high picks ever did. Sawyer Robertson won one with the Bucks. MJ Morris won one with the Giants. I think another one of the late round picks might have won one, but none of the first round or high picked quarterbacks ever won a Super Bowl. Daniels, Johnson, Dante Moore, those guys are Hall of Famers. Never won a title, though. Let's look at some records broken across the league. Micah Parsons, 211 sacks. Jeremy Bernard and Micah Parsons and Takayas Brinkley all breaking the receiving and sack records in the same year is wild. Otherwise, there were not any game records that were broken during the duration of the series. For the Broncos, we filled out most of the list. Bo Nix, 305 touchdowns. Raheem Easley not only broke Ashton Gentry's touchdown record, but he shattered it with 112. Easley wasn't even that good. I think he averaged under 4 yards a carry for his career, but had a knack for the end zone. Ryan Williams has the receiving triple crown. Mykel Williams leads in sacks, and Pat Surtain leads in interceptions with 47. So we broke all the records here except for rushing yards with Terrell Davis. Ashton Gentry was within 1,000. And then John Elway passing yards. Bo Nix was within around 5,000. In terms of season records, Ryan Williams and Raheem Easley with touchdowns. Mykel Williams with sacks. In a game, we had a few. Williams, 228 yards. That was in the playoff game. Had 5 touchdowns in a game 2 years later. He's the only one here, though. Williams' name showing up more than anyone in the record books. Rookie season, we've got Bo Nix for passing, and then Tez Johnson, 7 touchdowns as a rookie. And then in a game, Bo Nix, 367 yards. That's the only one here. So I think that just about does it. We've seen our list of Hall of Famers. We've seen the record books. And that is going to do it for the Denver Broncos franchise. And it also kind of does it for the Kansas series because we've seen the end of the careers of guys like Hall of Famer Jalen Daniels, along with Devin Neal, Marvin Grant, Kobe Bryant, Takayas Brinkley, the best drafted player of the series, Damani Maxson, Seth Jennings, right at the end. It's been a really fun and unique journey with this team dating back 20 years. I think we've gone through 19 seasons total, 5 in the series, 14 in the sim. We won 2 Super Bowls. Never made it back, unfortunately, during the sim. I think we made the AFC Championship twice. We were never consistently that great of a team in the sim, and I think giving Bo Nix 6 years on that extension was a mistake. Obviously, you're going to pay the guy who won you the Super Bowl, but probably shouldn't have given him 6. Nonetheless, it was fun watching Bo Nix's journey turning into a Super Bowl winner. It was fun watching the stories of guys like Ashton Gentry and Marvin Mims going through trials and tribulations, dealing with injuries. Watching guys like Jeffrey Bossa and Patrick Surtain play as the best players at their positions in the league. And then in the long-term sim, seeing guys like Mykel Williams and Ryan Williams developing into legends. This was a different team because it was not about the star power with this group. We only ended up with 3 Hall of Famers, Ryan Williams, Mykel Williams, and Pat Surtain. But it was about the well-roundedness and the depth that this team had. Both times we won the Super Bowl, we had multiple candidates for the Super Bowl MVP because there was never one guy who really stood out, but a bunch of really, really good players. This was a team. I think that's the best way to describe them. Not a bunch of superstars, but a team. So with Madden 25 done, the Madden 26 cycle starts in around a month, and before you know it, in the Discord server, we'll be talking about Madden 26 teams. I think probably 2 to 3 weeks or so. I thought about it in my head a little bit of some teams I'm going to be interested in. I still have to go through like my extensive review of all the depth charts and whatnot to see who I'm really interested in, but I'm starting to get a little bit of an idea of the teams I'll consider. And of course, tomorrow, or I guess today at this point when you're watching this, starts the College Football 26 content cycle. We'll be starting the new Dynasty series hopefully on Wednesday. I'm excited for you guys to see the team and the big storyline we'll be rolling with for the series. So that'll wrap it up. The final episode comes to a close of the Denver Broncos franchise here on Madden 25. It's been one hell of a journey with this team. Make sure to leave a like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. And for one last time, Broncos country, let's ride.